So since retiring from driving 10 years ago, now I went straight away to working television with the BBC, initially as a pundit, which is how we call it in English for someone who just talks about what the drivers are doing. And then that role developed into being a commentator. And during that time, in that first year, I realized there was an opportunity within the production world, and I identified two gentlemen within the industry that were available to start a new business and to really focus on raising the level of the sports production. And so Whisper Films was started with Jake Humphrey and Sunil Patel, and 10 years later we're one of the largest growing production businesses in the UK. We do women's football, women's rugby, NFL, Formula One, W Series, Sail GP, which is a new sailing championship, as well as some documentaries and branded content. So it's been really great to see that despite not knowing anything about television, I was able to be the catalyst to bring a business to the fore. In conjunction with that, I've continued to work with different brands like Red Bull, Mercedes, IWC, Hugo Boss, Heineken, various businesses that want to utilize the fact that I was once upon a time a Grand Prix driver, which is perfectly demonstrated in this unique piece of artwork behind us, which is from my McLaren Mercedes years. And you know, all of this journey has brought me to this point today. Well, it's interesting having made the transition from being a driver and working with television cameras and being interviewed by many different international broadcasters. What I realized actually is to be on the other side of the camera as someone interviewing is a very different experience, because when you're just being interviewed, you wait for the question, you think of an answer, and you talk, and then you leave. But to actually ask a question which could be interesting, could be different to what the driver has been asked before, is quite difficult. So I realized it was too difficult for me, so I just asked the obvious question: how do you feel? What was the challenge? Clearly I'm not a journalist, but I've learned over the last few years about television and how it works, and in the end you want to get the best out of the individual. So it's an interesting opportunity to have been on both sides of the camera. Well, the journey as a whole in Formula One is something that is the most memorable, because I've gone from a small village in the southwest of Scotland, 350 people, to suddenly travelling the world for the last 25 years, and to have met people from all around the world. And this is the richest reward, if you like, from this journey. Of course, the goal as a driver was to try and win races and to win Grand Prix, and I was very lucky to drive for good teams and to have that opportunity. But in the end, a trophy in itself doesn't mean anything, but the experience, the interaction, the sharing of good times, sometimes difficult times with people is really what brings you, I think, a lot in life. So, to Formula One, it's given me, I think, one of the best universities that you could have gone to. Well, when I heard that Sebastian had referenced DC, I have to imagine it's some other DC, because I just can't imagine a four-time world champion would have anything from what I was doing during my driving time. But if I assume it was me, then, well, of course, I'm happy that maybe the little role that I played in helping Sebastian go from Toro Rosso to Red Bull Racing is something that he's remembered. But in the end, he's a great champion. There's nothing that I imagine I could teach him, but I think that my driving style was on the smooth side of things, and yeah, it's good to know that it's still remembered. Well, Michael is the most successful driver in the history of Formula One, a winning machine, winning more than 90-something Grand Prix. And we had a kind of turbulent relationship when we were racing on track, sometimes perfectly polite and friendly. Other times, of course, he was quite angry with with Spa '98 when he crashed into the back of me. I was quite angry with him in Magny-Cours, I think 2001, when he was really aggressive, and I had to really fight to take the lead of that Grand Prix. And I think it's fantastic that, you know, the helmet that we're celebrating from my career is from that era, and I think it was a very strong part of my racing career. But in the end, you know, I had a great deal of respect for Michael, and it seems he also had some respect for me, because we were able to exchange racing helmets, and, you know, having his helmet to me in my home, and it's got a nice message about all the battles and all the fun we had, because we did have some good fun off track as well, some private parties. He liked a Bacardi and Coke and a cigar. You know, I was more vodka Red Bull, and I wasn't really into smoking. But we have some good memories, and I think that, you know, sport takes you to the extremes of emotion. You know, if it's success, of course, everybody's happy, and sometimes out of failure, you have people who can't handle that either. So it's a roller coaster ride. Well, Race of Champions is something I've done for many years. Yes, it's serious in that you want to have a good event, but I always, for me, was more about the social aspect of hanging out with the other drivers and sharing stories from NASCAR to IndyCar to rally. You know, I went there in the beginning with Colin McRae, who was a great rally world champion, sadly no longer with us, but we had a lot of fun being teammates and really, you know, embracing that weekend. So what I would say for Race of Champions is, you know, to Frederick Johnson, to those behind it, it is able to transcend all of the different motorsports and bring people together. And some of my sort of most memorable race weekends have come from that. And of course it's nice, I've been lucky enough to be the winner on 2 occasions. It doesn't change my racing CV particularly, but it's still nice to occasionally come home with a trophy. Well, I would like to say to anyone who's interested in the helmet poster or has bought the helmet poster, thank you for recognising the journey I was having in Formula One. This particular era and this period was a very successful period, a winning period of my career. I spent 9 years with West McLaren Mercedes, as it was known at that time, and it was a very intense period of Formula One with Mika, with Michael, you know, with Lewis coming into the team as a young driver, and then eventually, of course, beyond my driving for McLaren, he became, that was his first team. So there was a lot of excitement around that period, and I think it certainly takes me on a little memory journey back to that time of Formula One, where we had naturally aspirated, high revving engines, and it was, I think, a period with Michael and Mika especially, which was something to be a spectator, and in my case, whilst in the car, watching them battle for a championship was something special.